Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Alicia Michelson, and I'm the Artistic Director at Peninsula School of Art in Fish Creek, Wisconsin. I am honored to introduce our newest artists in residence, Morgan Shankweiler and Nicole Shaver. Morgan and Nicole are with us for a total of 6 weeks in an immersive studio experience that prioritizes time and space for them to engage fully in their creative practice, experiment, and pursue new projects and ideas. Today, we have the opportunity to get to know each of them through brief image presentations. First, we'll hear from Morgan. Morgan is a painter and mixed media artist based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Jefferson, Maine. Morgan approaches her research through a trained sociological lens, utilizing both ethnographic and quantitative analysis, and straddles the line between realistically rendered metaphor and abstract data visualization in an attempt to unravel the Gordian knot that is society. Visually striking and intricate, the work articulates how humans connect and relate at the intersections of social contact and time through drawing, painting, potential systems, and interactive sculptural games. Morgan has been awarded residencies at SVA, Penland School of Craft, Da Vinci Art Alliance, Chashama North, and Ellis Beauregard Foundation. Her award-winning work has been exhibited in solo and group exhibitions across the country. Her time at the Peninsula School of Art is supported through a generous grant from the Joseph Robert Foundation. Take it away, Morgan.
Hello, my name is Morgan Thomas Shankweiler. My practice fluctuates between image making and systems building as I work to articulate how humans connect and relate to each other and to the natural world at the intersections of social contact and time. I currently make drawings, paintings, potential systems, and interactive sculptural games. In this slide here, you can see fourth graders from a South Philadelphia elementary school interacting with my work, Your Agency Within My System. This piece was made up of a wall-hung grid and 500 plus blocks that were painted with connecting units that also knotted within the unit. My formal training in art comes through college, where I studied both studio art and sociology, and in India, where I lived and studied Mughal miniature painting in Rajasthan. In the decade and a half post-college, I worked in myriad, what my cousin and I call art-adjacent jobs, advertising, cake decorating when that was super trendy, theatrical set design and painting, illustration. I still work for Mural Arts Philadelphia, and I also worked in paper conservation at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I balanced these jobs with, at first, my own studio practice, but then also the raising of 3 stepsons, and then my own twin daughters. It wasn't until a few years ago that I felt a shift in my practice that made it a renewed priority for me. Though not much has changed for me personally with the COVID-19 pandemic. I was already home with my twins, who were then 4 years old. My work in sociology and anthropology allowed me insight into the social fabric that was deteriorating, as far as I could see, through distance, privilege or lack thereof, as well as ways in which we were still holding each other up. I was noticing all of this, and my work started to address this through these images of ropes and knots, and then grew into small drawn tapestries. Knots have always turned up in my work, but in this case, I thought of them more as metaphorical extensions of touch and care. Sociologist Mark Granovetter studies the way that people, social networks, and social institutions interact and shape one another. His arguably most famous theory is that of weak ties and strong ties. Strong ties are those people who are who we are closest to, our family and very close friends that we see regularly, that we share a lot of information with about our daily lives. Weak ties are those people we see in passing, both regularly and fleetingly, like our acquaintances, the barista at the local coffee spot, train and bus passengers, the other parents at school drop off, etc. More and more research shows that while strong ties are an important structure to your daily life, it is the weak ties that make you feel seen, make you feel human, and more often than not, make you feel happy. It is also the diversity of weak ties around you that makes you feel connections to others across divides. In the midst of the pandemic, this is what I started wanting to untangle and then communicate. So when I started connecting these ropes, they took new form and tension through their interaction. Safety nets, networks, internets, a metaphorical fabric of society. I was really using the net metaphor liberally. These are maps of human connectivity, and to me, they're metaphors for complex social interactions: hands holding, sustained eye contact, joined protest, family dynamics, etc. What felt missing from these studies and from my own abilities as a rigid realist figurative artist was an element of chance and chaos. To counteract my urges and force myself to abstract these ideas, I decided to let chance or aleatory play a role in the composition of the works. I designed an alphabet that you can see here of connecting tiles in the same format as Wang dominoes, but not focusing on periodic and aperiodic tiling equations. And as the work grew larger and more complex, the tiles allowed me to speed up the net composition process, but also allowed me to assign rules to various parts of the process, influencing and limiting the composition in meaningful ways. Here's a video of my daughter and I putting together these tiles, connecting them at random. At first, the rules were very strict. I used statistics, percolation theory, hard data, which is always fraught, and informed the tie formation series, which both of these paintings are from. There are now at least 15 iterations of these tiles, each with different connection points, gauges, or designs. In each iteration, there are at least 100 unique tiles, a number that grows exponentially as you add directionality and other strand features. I've also made modular alphabets into linoleum block tiles, smaller modular printing tiles. You get the idea. The asemic nature of the tiles is a language in and of itself. And it's something that I'm hoping to explore more while I'm here at Penn Art, and in the future make a more abstract series. At Penland's winter residency 2022, I decided to play more loosely with these tiles to make images. I accepted the idea that rules of any kind can be a stand-in for a larger abstract system governing human behavior. And I played all sorts of games: dice throwing, rock, paper, scissors, spelling, random number generator games, chance code switching, to begin a new series of diagram work called the By Chance Connection series. You can see here in this slide the mock-up of the tiles pinned onto the wall, digitally colored, and then the final painting. These paintings find meaning after the initial game is played and while I paint, which means that they rub up against my illustration background more than some of my other pieces, and also allow for visual comparisons, extending the network systems idea to briars or clover chains, chain links, moon cycles. I think of them as microscope slides of human interaction. So it's like a slice of information that shows you something, shows you a detail, shows you information about something, but it doesn't show you the entire organism. While at the Da Vinci Art Alliance residency in Philadelphia, also in 2022, I was introduced to the work of a games philosopher named C.T. Nguyen, who posits that games are an art form of their own, in which the medium that you're working with is agency. Using this idea of agency, I have started to make indeterminate paintings in the form of familiar games meant for interaction. In this way, I record in time real social engagement. I'm also drawn to the idea that in a tech-focused world, art that requires haptic engagement has the unique capability to force the viewer to focus and connect beyond the black screen or the black mirror. So in this, you can see 3 versions of games that I've created. I have a domino system on one side. I have grid paintings in the middle, and one of my daughters playing with one of them. And then I have actually one of those old-fashioned tile sliding games on the right. So what's next? This fall, I spent a month at Shaw North, Shoshama's residency in the Hudson Valley, New York, and was introduced to the work of Alighiero Boetti and to pataphysics and the work of the Olympian poets. While I'm here at Penn Art, I hope to explore potential systems and symbiosis. I'm leaning more heavily into abstraction. I'm going to play a little bit with sculpture. And I'm building some new languages to work with to build this asemic poetry. I'm so excited to spend these 6 weeks concentrating on new bodies of work, working towards this solo show in June in Philadelphia. And I feel like I'm finally getting to a point where I can float along this creative current and pace myself when the last few years have been a real torrent of creativity. A couple of quick thank yous. Thank you to obviously the Peninsula School of Art for having me, but also thank you to the Joseph Robert Foundation for supporting my ability to come to this residency. I am so grateful to them. They made this possible for me. And of course, thank you to my husband and my mom and my dad and my family, my kids, for letting me come here and spend this time making work. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Morgan. Also in residence, we have Nicole Shaver. Nicole grew up along Lake Michigan, where she skipped rocks and watched fishermen gut salmon as a child. Largely inspired by ideas of place and belonging, she researches geographical sites and employs them as metaphorical compasses to navigate the space between reality and fantasy, the banal and the sublime. Nicole received her BFA from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and her MFA from the University of Iowa. She has attended artist residencies in Colorado, Iceland, North Carolina, Ohio, Portugal, Vancouver, and Wisconsin, while exhibiting widely throughout the United States and Scandinavia. Her work has been featured on NPR's All Things Considered and published in New American Paintings and Studio Visit magazine. Nicole is committed to growth of the artistic community in Wisconsin, working as director at the Milwaukee Artists Resource Network Art and Culture Hub. She maintains a painting studio in Saukville, Wisconsin, shoots 35mm film, runs, swims, and throws rocks when permitted. Let's hear from Nicole.
Hello, my name is Nicole Shaver, and I am really happy to be here in Fish Creek in Door County at Peninsula School of Art as your resident. And I'm really excited to show you a little bit about my work today. And I have it organized a little bit by project. I am showing you this first slide here today. This is a project that I was working on for an exhibition at VAR Gallery West in Milwaukee. I am based in Port Washington, Wisconsin, and work and showcase my work in Milwaukee and find a lot of validation in the creatives that are working in my city. This is a project called 30 by 30, which shows annually at VAR Gallery, and you are invited to make 30 pieces of artwork in 30 days. I'm calling this series Liquid Landscapes because they are really influenced by geology and that longing to put a rock in your pocket to remember a time and place. Each one of these are made out of found images from travel guides, from National Geographics. They're from found photos. And some of them are including some detritus, like broken pieces of glass and sticks and pieces of sea glass found on Lake Michigan. And they're really encapsulated in these sort of jeweled like resin specimens. You'll see with my work, I'm really influenced by place and object and maintaining a sense of place through things. Sometimes that's geological, sometimes that's man-made, and hopefully it has a cadence of something familiar, that time that you might have spent somewhere really memorable or sublime. This next piece I'd like to talk about is actually right on Lake Michigan. And for me, this is sort of how I start to embody and start to think about creating a series of artwork. And a lot of that is by looking and traveling at different speeds, walking, running, swimming, biking, to sort of interject myself into place as swiftly as possible. I'm really interested in this idea of becoming a local, not a tourist, at a place that I've never been before, or that I'm learning how to see in. And there's this really special stretch of beach in Port Washington where I grew up, and I'm really interested that the other beachgoers on this one small stretch of beach started to form these beechwood teepees. And so I too started to add that into my practice, where I would start to photograph these beechwood teepees that would form over time. And I like how time and people's actions are captured in the making of an object. So I too started to take those beechwood specimens back to my studio, because to me they were sort of already charged with this human action. And I wondered what a human action put through an artistic practice would look like. And around this time was during the COVID pandemic, when we were in shutdown, and I started to put together this beechwood wreath. At first, intuitively, this size to be able to fit through a door frame, but then it became, quite evidence that it was 6 feet around perfectly, and the 6 feet diameter started to sort of have a different sort of human significance. And I took the beechwood wreath back to the beach then and sort of did a performance with it, where I rolled it down the beach and had it almost as a struggle to be with that distance between myself and a theoretical another person. And I grew up Catholic, so this struggle of a bodily sized tree was not lost on me, that this struggle on a frozen landscape really was a physical type of performance that sometimes the work lends itself to, especially when it gets to a certain scale. And I'm really interested in the way that my body can start to activate a piece that I'm working on. This last 2 falls ago, I actually was another resident up here in Door County at the Dome House. So it's been, which is on the other side of the peninsula by Whitefish Dune State Park. And again, I replicated this practice of trying to be a local as swift as possible. And for me, that meant a run every day, the same loop down this one stretch of beach. And I started to record that run because even in a time lapse, it would start to reveal new iconography from that one loop of landscape. And I was able to sort of chart the changes in time and the changes in season, even from a day to day, just by hyper focusing on that perspective. And I ran with this 360 camera, so it started to, see everything. And I created a video. This is a still from this video of myself activating that daily practice of running the same sort of 5-mile trail loop through the park system here in Door County and observing the tourists, the locals, some of the same repeaters, always the familiar dog. Also during that time, at that residency at the Dome House, which is put on by the Miller Art Museum, I created a series of atlas drawings, one drawing per day during the 8 weeks that I had spent at the Dome House. And during that time, I was really, again, open to all of the different iconographies that were coming past me on a daily time frame. So each day I would sort of make this catch all. I started to think of these as like atlases or a map to the influences I was observing in Door County. And this one in particular has some images found from printed material from the state parks, from brochures that I had found, from a little jewel that I had bought, from a library stamp that I found, from a term of phrase that came across me. And in that way, I find a lot of freedom in building a visual representation of place, in that the influences are always sort of outwardly channeled, in that I'm sort of the catalyst for translating images and materials that come past my creative sense of self. And sometimes the output is vastly different. And I find a lot of freedom in an artist in that sometimes the output can be 52 drawings. Sometimes it can be a time-based video. It really is sort of dictated by my time and place and that investigation that happens therein. This piece is representing a project that I'm currently working on / wrapped up. It's an exhibition at the University of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was working really intimately with their geology department. And this is another one of those interesting sort of scenarios that I set up for myself in an exhibition at a university, knowing that there are certain sort of accessibility points, archives, educational influences that can take on into the work. So I was working on this particular collage with field guides from 1957 and an agate guide from the 70s. And I was actually cutting out these specimens from those field guides and sort of putting them into new context. Very interested in the thoughts about who maintains knowledge, how we transfer knowledge, how there can be full truth and half fantasy, or half truth, full fantasy. And it really depends on the person translating and sharing that information. I myself, as visual storyteller, really like to lean into that that trust that can be established, but also the gaps that can happen in translation and observation. This next piece that I'm showing is from another residency that I was at in Iceland. where a friend of mine collaborated on a few different light installations. In January in Iceland, there's only a few hours of daylight, and those couple hours of daylight, they might look like a little bit like this, where it's this beautiful blue light, but also really extreme sort of shifts in the darkness and lightness, but also your perceptions on space and the refractions that can happen with such a shift in landscape. As somebody that grew up in the Midwest, Iceland is like, of course, a very extreme kind of place to be able to investigate. And I really like extremes. This piece was more of a performance and sort of a this piece was this is a performance piece with the local mountain, Mount Spakkenufell, that myself and collaborator Heidi Zenishek, we dressed up in 2 pink snowsuits and sort of did a thank you, a revelatory act, a acknowledgement to this sort of mammoth mountain that looks over a small fishing village of 700 people. The town really has this beautiful legend around the mountain. And again, in instances where I get to put myself into a place I've never been, I get to really kind of lean into these different mythologies, full truth, half fantasy, again, sort of like investigating how I can interject my own perspectives into histories of place. This piece is actually in that same town in Skagastrand, Iceland, where there is another residency called Nez. I've been fortunate to be invited there a few times. And during my first trip there, that mountain I was sharing with before was really very evident in the town, that Mount Spakkenufell was something that people really reveled. And I really was interested in this little island that I kept sort of praying to in a way. And I started to ask a lot of locals about this small island framed here, which I learned is called Arbakastin, translating to riverbank rock. And there's this beautiful river that comes down from that mountain, shown before, and it sort of transplants this island into the middle of the bay. And I thought, what an interesting sort of, another geological landmark that this beautiful town gets to sort of take name to. And yet they really hadn't, it didn't seem like much of the locals had much attachment to this geological feature in comparison to such a mammoth of a 13,000 peak behind them. So I started making this action of framing out Arbakastin, that it could be another visual point for the locals to feel pride in and feel represented by another landmark. So I was working with these Icelandic rocks that I found up the coast, and in a beautiful sort of act of collaboration with my peers there, we loaded up a truck full of 100 of these Icelandic rocks, and I spent my residency there drilling holes into each one of these rocks to form a permanent frame for Arbakastin that now the locals like to take pictures under, and they refer to it as the Lover's Arch. And it really warms my heart that it's establishing another space for people to find pleasure in. This is another great example of a piece that's not like any other piece I would have ever make, and probably will not again. That's so dictated by place and the materials found therein. This water garden, I sort of started to think of it as, was made in Portugal at a residency called PADA, P-A-D-A. And there they grant you access to an old furniture resin factory from the 60s that's now debunked. And in my time there, I started to do these like daily walks where I would sort of walk around the trash and the detritus and the remains of this like very pre-industrial, very industrial area of Portugal that's now sort of dilapidated. And I started to make these sort of like sculptural assemblages, and found this sort of already pre-delineated gallery in a way, this like remnants, this basement remnants foundation of one of these resin factories, and started to sort of form my own reflection pond sculpture sculpture garden here among the detritus. And then I really sort of took it one step further and started to flood the basement so that it would create this beautiful reflection pool of these assemblages. And it's sort of another one of these beautiful pieces that doesn't fully exist as it does in this photograph anymore. I know that I've gotten some updates that the sculptures have gone back to their original sort of resting place of chaos, random chaos on the ground. And this, I guess, is my last example of sort of this formula where I interject myself into a place, knowing that the output is going to be something that I simply can't predict. This was during a residency in Ohio at Open Wabi, it's called, in an old furniture factory. And during my time there, again, I sort of turn into my practice of walking and being open to ideas and sort of being open to the idea of wandering and play, and found myself really playing in this old brickyard that was on the property. And my human compulsion was to take these bricks back to the studio, which of course I did, all 1,000 of them by hand. And what a beautiful action that was. And sort of like the residencies provide this meditative place to investigate what it feels like to do an endurance activity for a while, for a few days, just one simple action of moving bricks. And then I started to gold foil some of these more finalized bricks, and in the action I really found all of the details and the imperfections in the bricks, and started to learn that the inmates made the bricks in Ohio back in the day, and some of the inmates were stamping their names directly into the bricks. And it became sort of this like this golden brick walkway, this road to sort of nowhere and into something like a reliquary or a special. It really did take a different life once the bricks got gold foiled, that they were elevated, that they were taken again from something so banal into the sublime, which I really resonated with. And then again, the bricks here went back into their original resting place. So what happened was that back into this kind of crazy brickyard went, a couple hundred of these gold and silver bricks that interjected into a place of chaos. Felt really good, like planting a gem into a bunch of rubble that maybe someday somebody will come back to that place and find, as I too found something of value in a material just not fully activated at that time. So it's my hope that during my time here in Door County, I will be again very open to the materials that I can find here and the place that I will hope to embody fully through material, through creative process. And I too wonder what that will look like. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much, Nicole. It was a pleasure to hear from both of you today. Toward the end of their residency, we will be hosting an in-person end-of-session studio tour. If any of you tuning in are in the area, I hope you will join us and see what Morgan and Nicole have been working on during their time with us. In the meantime, please follow us on social media for more behind the scenes updates. Thanks so much.